Hey, I'm Blair Best. It's Monday here on The Story, and tonight, volunteers are working to restore a once critical piece of infrastructure in the North Cascades, made obsolete by technology. Plus, today, Governor Kotek touted several new laws aimed at energy affordability, what that means for utility rate hikes. But first, the transportation funding special session is on Friday, and hundreds of Oregonians told state lawmakers how they feel about the plan, which includes tax and fee hikes. But are those hikes really needed? It's our big story tonight. Okay, so the public hearing on the transportation funding plan that Oregon lawmakers will be hashing out during Friday's special session ended within the last 20 minutes. Now, the hearing began at 3 o'clock. The committee that faced the public today featured the top Democrats and Republicans from both the House and Senate. More than 2,000 people submitted written testimony in just the last 5 days. According to the House Republicans, well over 90% of that written testimony was against the plan on the table for lawmakers. For those of you who haven't been following this, let's give you a quick refresher of what that is. Legislative Concept 2 is the governor's plan to avoid nearly 500 looming ODOT layoffs and stabilize the state's transportation funding system. If lawmakers can't accomplish anything on Friday, those layoffs will begin in the middle of next month, and 12 maintenance facilities across the state will close. A second round of layoffs would begin in January. All right, here's the fee hikes in the plan, which would begin January 1st. The gas tax would go up by 6 cents. Registration fees across the board would increase by $42. Title fees are seeing a massive jump, up nearly $140 on the base fee alone. And then there's the transit payroll tax that comes out of your paycheck. The proposal would double that from 0.1% to 0.2%. The pay per mile program, or road user charge as lawmakers call it, would be mandatory for some drivers starting in summer 2027. Existing electric vehicles would be first that summer, then new EVs in January of 2028. And then in the summer of 28, hybrid and plug-in hybrids would have to enroll in the program. Now, the proposal also includes many ODOT accountability measures and would give the governor the power to hire and fire the ODOT director. Republicans have been quick to point out all the fee hikes and offered up a plan during the session earlier this year to move money from transit and environmental priorities towards maintenance to avoid these layoffs. Now that plan went nowhere, and that's not lost on state Republicans today.
Historically, transportation has always been a bipartisan, not just process, but a bipartisan outcome. This has not been that over the last year. And so in order for us to move forward, if we had an interim plan of what do we need to do right now to fix the problem, we do not have to raise taxes for that. So far, the only option that's been put on the table in front of us from the majority party is taxes. And we maintain that you do not have to do that in order to fix this budget crisis.
In fact, reporting from Willamette Week and the Oregon Journalism Project shows that even ODOT knows that to be true. It's a story that we think is worth your time. Nigel Jaquist wrote about it over the weekend. As special session looms on transportation funding, ODOT quietly offers alternative to new taxes. The agency has money, but without statutory changes, it cannot be spent on maintenance. Now, it centers on this press release that ODOT blasted out last week about its funding crisis. The article says that Representative Shelley Bossart-Davis noticed that line in the first paragraph. It says only new funding or having the flexibility to use existing funding in new ways can prevent layoffs and service reductions. This upcoming special session is only looking at new funding, which means increased taxes and fees. ODOT has pointed out time and time again that they can only use certain money on certain things. It's not like all the money goes into a big pot and then the agency decides where it goes. There are all kinds of different pots of money due to both federal and state law. Bossart-Davis argues state law should be changed to allow the agency to move money more freely when needed.
We're legislators. We can actually change law. It's this magical thing we do. That's literally our job, is to change laws. We can look and we hear from Oregonians all the time. Cost of living is #1 on everybody's rankings. What is the biggest concern that legislators can work with? And they say cost of living, cost of living. They do not want more taxes taken out of their paycheck. They don't want a doubling of payroll tax. I know that they don't. Everybody knows that they don't. And that's not really talked about. So we've got to make sure that we continue to push that and say that they're getting less, they're paying more for status quo, and we know that they don't want that.
So today, I asked Governor Tina Kotek about that idea of changing state law to move money around. Listen.
I have heard this argument that there's money somewhere else. What I would say there is most of the money that is sitting in the department's budget that can't be tapped is going to specific projects around the state. So if the legislature wants to defund a project to do other things in the ODOT budget, that is their choice. But I'm not hearing that. What I'm hearing is, let's dedicate this new money for maintenance and operations. I'm committed to that. I'll even put that in writing. That's what Oregonians are expecting. The new funding being proposed is the most reliable, consistent way to make sure the Department of Transportation is funded to provide basic services.
So is changing the law even being considered between now and Friday? Very unlikely, but it could come up during next year's short legislative session or beyond. But when it comes to LC2, that plan that we talked about earlier, another public hearing is now set for Friday, the same day as the special session, because of how many people signed up to give public testimony. Details on that hearing are not yet public, but we will keep you posted. Okay, so talk to us. What do you think about the plan as it stands now? Would you rather give ODOT more leeway with how it spends the money it receives by changing state law? Email us, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090.
This is what long-term sustainability and affordability looks like, and I want to thank...
Well, just a few hours ago, Governor Tina Kotek was in Hillsborough at a construction site for affordable housing, touting 4 new laws aimed at lowering utility bills for low-income Oregonians and increasing accountability for big energy users like data centers.
At the end of the day, we want to make sure that people can pay their bills. People work hard, they raise their families, they need to be able to have a place that they can afford, and that includes energy costs that are affordable.
The first bill, called the Power Act, requires big energy users to pay for the strain that they put on the state's electrical grid. It creates a special rate category for those users, making it so they cover their own costs instead of putting it on families and small businesses. The second bill, the Fair Energy Act, limits how often utility companies can raise rates, banning increases during the winter months. It also requires the utility companies to explain what exactly households are being charged for.
And we are giving the Public Utility Commission the tools they need to protect Oregon residents and our small businesses when pressures pile onto the utilities.
Now, the last 2 bills, House Bill 3792, sends $40 million to the Oregon Energy Assistance Program. That's to help low-income Oregonians pay their energy bills. The per-household cap goes from $500 to $1,000. And then Senate Bill 688 rewards or penalizes utility companies for things like reliability, affordability, and wildfire safety.
This legislation, all told together, positions Oregon as a leader in both technological innovation and environmental justice, making sure that our energy future serves every Oregonian.
So today we join at least 17 states in the U.S., along with Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, that have enacted legislation or adopted frameworks that incorporate performance-based regulation for utilities.
Now, also there today was Oregon's kid governor. Here's what she had to say about the state's fight against climate change and work towards clean energy.
I want to make sure that Oregon can last through the ages, and it takes effort from all of us to help Oregon and the world thrive. I want to thank everyone who does their part in the battle against climate change. It means the world to all of us, literally.
Well, after 3 days of high temperatures, extreme heat warnings have been limited for the Willamette Valley. At least 2 people have died from the heat so far in our region. Health officials in Clackamas County are reporting 1 potential heat-related death. They say a 55-year-old woman died on Sunday. Since Thursday, Clackamas County emergency rooms and urgent care have treated more than 100 people for heat-related illnesses. Multnomah County is also reporting Portland's first potential death from this ongoing heat wave. The county says a 56-year-old man was found dead on Saturday in northwest Portland. County officials are reporting 26 heat-related emergency room and urgent care visits since last Friday. To put that into context, they say they usually see 0 or 1 visit on a typical summer day. Okay, Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino joins us now with a look at what to expect in the days to come. Matt?
Hey, Blair, thanks so much. You know what? We broke the heat wave today, really, courtesy of cloud cover, which I'll show you in a bit. But unlike yesterday's 95 and then triple digits the 2 days before that, today we topped out at 88 in Portland, managed to make it up to 90 in Scappoose and 91 in Hillsborough, but a whole lot better than it's been for the last 3 days. 98 down in Roseburg. Look at Central Oregon, topping out in the 70s again because of cloud cover. Okay, we're nearing the end of August, so let's take a look at the whole month, right? And the big heat wave, well, one of them we just finished. 102 Friday, 100 Saturday, and then 95 yesterday, but today we're down to 88. The other one was back on the, the 10th of August through the 12th, and we hit 99 for 3 days in a row. So that got me thinking, okay, we've only hit 100 a couple times this year, but how many times have we hit 99? Well, we'll talk about this. 3 straight days of 90 or more. We've done that 2 times now in 2025. Last year, we did it 4 times, and the last was in September, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. What about the last time we had a year without 3 straight 90-degree days? You got to go all the way back 5 years ago to 2020. And then this is the most recent one. The total number of days where we hit 99 degrees or hotter, we're up to 5 thanks to what we just did over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But last year, we had a record 8 days of 99 or hotter. That's the most Portland's ever had in a year. So you don't have to use 100 degrees as the metric. We can search for 99 and see how that shakes out. And it's rather interesting that we had so many last year. And we're getting close this year, but I think with a little bit of luck, we'll be done with 99 or 100 degree heat. It's 87 right now, thanks to the cloud cover that I mentioned earlier. Now, you notice let me go back to this. You notice this dew point temperature that we report here, right there of 60 degrees. That's a combination, that and the temperature, that's how you end up with a relative humidity of 40%. But the dew point is actually a truer measure of how much moisture is in the air and how humid it feels. So for that, we look at our humidity forecast, and we're right on the edge, at 60-degree dew point between comfy and a little bit muggy, and it won't get any higher. So yeah, humidity's been up a bit, but not too bad. So here's the cloud cover that kept us from reaching 90 today. We're just on the western edge of it, but these clouds have also been producing showers and thunderstorms over and east of the Cascades and even west of the Cascades. We had a thunderstorm out near Scotts Mill about an hour and a half ago that produced about 1/3 of an inch of rain. This is the smoke forecast. You see where it's thickest around the fires here. Most of the Willamette Valley just seeing light smoke through Wednesday, and I think it'll actually get better as we go through the week. What about the air quality? That's been impacted a bit. We're in the moderate category for all the sensors around the Portland area right now. DEQ has issued an air quality alert for ozone, but that expires at 10 o'clock tonight, and all the other heat warnings and advisories have expired west of the Cascades. We had some showers that we could see from our Timberline Skycam a bit ago. They have moved on, but the air quality here is looking pretty good. We can see Mount Jefferson quite clearly and nice and cool up at Timberline. There go those showers, Blair. And as I mentioned, the bigger thunderstorm threat down in southern Oregon, and for that reason, we have fire weather warnings down there for the potential of lightning and gusty winds around storms that could help to make fires burn more erratically and more dangerously. But overall, we're done with the heat wave. We'll be much cooler as we go through the week.
Definitely looking forward to that cool down. Okay, Matt, thanks so much. We're back right after this. A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration cannot deny funding to dozens of so-called sanctuary cities because they don't cooperate with immigration enforcement. Last week, the judge issued an injunction protecting Boston, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, and 30 other cities and counties from losing funding because they don't cooperate with federal immigration efforts. Portland, San Francisco, and Seattle are protected by an earlier ruling in the same case that the judge issued back in April. Now, the cities suing the administration say billions of dollars are at risk after the president signed an executive order directing Attorney General Pam Bondi and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to withhold federal money from sanctuary jurisdictions. You may remember earlier this month, AG Bondi sent a letter to sanctuary districts demanding they follow federal immigration law, saying that the DOJ will take legal action to challenge sanctuary laws, even bring criminal charges against public officials. Well, here's what Governor Tina Kotek had to say about that today.
I'm prepared to fight for Oregonians to get every one of their federal tax dollars to come back to our state. And I'm also prepared to say, look, we're going to keep going. If we have to go it alone, we will, to the best of our ability. We can stand up for our values and have the services we need. And that's been my goal all along. I'll work with anyone who wants to make sure people get what they need. And that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Meanwhile, as President Trump has floated the idea of sending the National Guard into cities, Governor Kotek called it unconscionable and said the Guard is better used helping with natural disasters like wildfires. All right, now let's get to some of your feedback on our big story from Friday, looking at the mixed signals from Portland City Hall when it comes to revitalizing downtown. City leaders celebrated the upcoming return of Sunday parkways for the first time in 6 years, where downtown streets are closed for a community block party. But that announcement comes on the heels of major parking fee hikes, $3.60 an hour now, and the upcoming extension of parking enforcement from 7 p.m. each night to 10 p.m. That starts next Tuesday. Well, several of you agreed with a viewer named Joe who wrote, "It has been sad to watch the demise of downtown over the last 5+ years due to COVID, homelessness, etc. And when we finally feel like it's starting to make a turn for the better, the city government does things like this, which in my opinion will not help continue this upswing in people wanting to spend time and money in downtown." Simon was a bit more blunt, writing, "In my 20+ years living here, you've transformed from a welcoming, easy to engage, and enjoyable city to one devoted to being inaccessible, expensive, and decidedly unfriendly. How these policies will benefit businesses and residents escapes me." We also heard from a viewer who has lived in the Goose Hollow neighborhood for decades.
It's so obvious to me, the taxes and the parking and everything else, and extending it makes it so difficult for people to come downtown Portland. It is so frustrating to pay, $13,000 a year in property tax and get taxed because I'm in a higher income just every which way. And everybody that I know that is in my income bracket and in a neighborhood here, almost everyone I talk to is thinking about leaving Portland because of this.
Tom offered a few solutions. First, residential must be a large part of the equation, all levels of housing. Second, entertainment, baseball, basketball, theater, food, music, all must be a major part. Third is accessibility. Parking fees and transportation need to be easy to navigate and affordable. Finally, business friendly. Businesses need to make money, or why would they bother? Now, if you spend any time in the comments section on our YouTube videos, we often see all kinds of opinions and takes about Portland, mostly negative. But we did want to highlight this comment that Eric wrote. All these people talking about how crazy it is in Portland. I mean, have you been to any cities? Portland is a great city. The demonization in people's heads to fix the homeless problem. We need lower rent and better jobs, not to incarcerate more people. The city is great, we're just leaving people behind. Coming up next on the story, technology has made them mostly obsolete, but a group of volunteers is working to restore a fire lookout from nearly a century ago that offers unmatched views in the North Cascades. We'll show you around when the story returns. Well, the KGW School Supply Drive is going on now, and one of the best ways that you can help is to give online. Go to kgw.com/school and click Donate Cash. When you give online, you'll receive a Columbia Sportswear Employee Store Pass. We want to thank On Point Community Credit Union, Safeway, and Rick's Custom Fencing for everything they're doing to make this year's supply drive a success. Now let's head up to Mount Rainier in the state of Washington. A piece of history with an incredible view of the mountain is almost back to its original glory. Volunteers are rebuilding a historic fire lookout, a project several years in the making. Drew Mickelson got a sneak peek at the work that aims to take visitors back in time.
The U.S. Forest Service built the High Rock Lookout for fire spotters in 1931. While technology has made these lookouts obsolete, the view has not changed. And that's why volunteers are spending countless hours trying to restore this historic viewpoint.
The problems of the world melt away when you're sitting here looking at these wondrous mountains.
It's a 1.5-mile hike, a steep one, up to this work site.
I retired a few years ago, and I have the luxury of coming up here midweek.
Most of the crew is not getting paid.
I don't know if these are gnats, some kind of fly, but they seem to be in a bit of a frenzy now that the weather's gotten better.
And there are flies, hundreds of flies. But at High Rock Lookout, there's nothing to complain about.
Because this is kind of almost like a sacred site now to those that come up here almost as a pilgrimage to see this spectacular view.
Chris Gustafson is a historic preservation contractor, working with dozens of volunteers to restore and rebuild the old fire lookout. The project began more than a decade ago. The near 100-year-old structure was showing its age. Vandals didn't help either. The Forest Service stopped using the building in 2004. Rather than burn it down like a lot of the other lookouts, volunteers here rallied.
Where I'm saying right here in the center is where the Osborne firefinder would be, where you'd be able to triangulate and find where wildfires are.
They took apart the pieces, repairing as much of the original lumber as possible.
I feel like we'll be keeping about 80% original, 20% new.
They've had to haul materials up by foot and by helicopter. They worked through heavy rains last week and still have a ways to go. But they say all this work will be worth it for generations to come.
And I think the people that pilgrimage up to this place, I don't know how many of them would walk away from this becoming a lesser person from it. You grow from the challenge. You enrich from this beautiful environment, and you change little by little by little.
The trail to the lookout has been closed to the public for most of this summer, but it reopens September 15th. The project will not be done by then, but they hope to finish it up by winter. That's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Straight Talk is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air the episode at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app, KGW+, which you can download for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, stay cool tonight. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.